More than 50 episodes of the Jeremy White Podcast are available on demand. That's almost as many times as Paul Stanley yells "People" at a Kiss concert.
That was a joke.
You see, I'm smiling.
An all-new episode of the Jeremy White Podcast, Tuesday at noon. Available wherever you stream. Catch up on past interviews and episodes on demand now. Subscribe so you don't miss any of it.
Crazy day. Well, let's get right into it. Brand new record called Wooden Heart Acoustic Anthology Volumes 1, 2, and 3 is available now. Really great stocking stuffer this holiday season. Remaining tour days for the rest of you are going to be hitting Dublin, California at a private event. So if you got tickets to that, great. December 17th and 18th in Kent and North Tonawanda, New York, which is sounds like a native reservation. I like that. Warrendale, PA. Welcome to the show. John Waite, everybody. There he is.
Hey, how are you doing, guys?
All good. Besides our technical difficulties today, our third cups of coffee, and just trying to look presentable, right, Mitch?
Yeah.
Look at that. Yeah, and look at that. I do have a Huey Lewis cup of coffee.
Oh, you do?
This morning, so
nice.
We're good there.
What was the big one?
Yeah. It is the gigantic one. Look at that.
It's the big one.
But there you go. John, I got the John Waite shirt. We got the John Waite Wooden Heart CD over here. It's also in my phone. I love
Thank
it.
you.
John, always an absolute pleasure to talk to you. Let's just get started with the Wooden Heart Anthology. You and I have spoken about it before, but for those like Jeremy who might be a little bit more unaware of it, talk to me about the concept, because it is a collection, as the word anthology would suggest, of previously released material. But talk to me about how it came together.
Well, about 5 years ago, I released a CD of unplugged songs. There was only 4. It was like an EP. And I had 2 Richard Thompson songs and 2 original songs that I wanted to record. I went in the studio and cut them. It seemed appropriate because nobody was doing the unplugged thing at that point. And it's something I've always really, truly loved, but I've avoided because everybody else had done it. But when the smoke cleared, it seemed like a good time to do it. I had the guitar player in the studio, and after we cut those 4 songs, I pulled out a couple of things, more original songs, and he had to leave. He was going somewhere, and he wasn't going to stay. And I didn't know anybody else that could really keep up. So I was left with 4 songs. So I released it as an EP, just to put something out for the people that might be following me. It was an easy thing to do, and it did very well. And only cost like $3 or something on iTunes. It was like, and we sold it at shows. And then about 3 years ago, I went back in. We were doing so many acoustic shows as well as electric shows. I put together another CD and re-recorded Isn't It Time and Missing You and In God's Shadow. A lot of things that I thought were really worth it. And there were a couple of tracks on different albums that were unplugged that I already had. So I added those to the mix. So it was like volume 2. And then with the pandemic, I'd managed to sort of like not play music or whatever, or write for about 10 months. And then I started
a lot of people.
Yeah. And I started losing it. I just like, I was just like, enough,
Mm-hmm.
So I went back in the studio to start an electric record. And I couldn't get it to swing. I don't know what was wrong. It just sounded like it was dated or something. And before I left the studio, I thought I didn't want to leave empty-handed. So I cut all these acoustic songs again. I started off with the Dylan song, Not Dark Yet. And it kind of moved me. It really moved me that I was taking on something that was so huge. It wasn't just like an average song. It was a song that had real muscle and had many sides to it. And there's only a couple of people that had actually taken it on. Eric Clapton, Shelby Lynne. It was like, but I did it, and I stood back and it made sense to me. And I realized I'd come a long way as a singer, and I'd come a long way as someone that might interpret somebody else's songs. I mean, it was an original. It wasn't like his version. You should never cover something and just do the original again.
Right.
And
I fully agree with that. You got to give it your own energy.
Yeah, totally. So I put my own, and I had a higher regard for myself. Suddenly I thought, well, this is good. You've come forward from
Did you
last year.
surprise yourself while you were doing it?
Yeah, yeah. And if you do, that's the good news. I mean, it's like if you're just doing the same thing over and over again and you think you've got an audience that you're singing to, I think you're going like a rat in a wheel,
Right.
So I picked some of the most lyrical songs like I-95 and more. And I added I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry from Temple Bar, and Girl from the North Country, another Dylan song, from The Hard Way. And I had another CD. And so I think inspired by Dylan's bootleg series 1, 2, 3, I decided I had nothing to lose in putting the whole thing out in 3 CDs and capturing a moment. And for the people that had missed it, it would make it available. It didn't cost the earth. It was something I could put out. It wound up being distributed into Target, which was good news, So it's in Target, signed copies in Target. And you can get a signed copy from John Waite worldwide, or you can come to the shows and get a copy. But it's out there in the world. I mean, the Target thing was good because it means we're legit. It's not like a homemade thing. It's like out there competing with everybody else.
You're competing with Taylor Swift and Justin Timberlake.
Let me ask you this. You came from, of course, you started with the Babies in the 70s, but in the 80s, you came from that time where we really started getting into production and a lot of keyboards and a lot of drum machines and a lot of stuff going on, a lot of candy going on.
Yeah.
What's it like for you to strip back the songs and just have them acoustic? Do you like that sound, that timbre? Do you like that performance and the way they come across? Or once you have a moment, you want to get back in the studio and let's candy it up and let's throw all kinds of stuff on there?
Get some cannonball snare on that.
Yeah, no, exactly. No, I could never stand keyboard bass. And all my instincts coming from the blues and country and folk are to keep it naked. Bands like Free that were a huge influence on me, or the Stones even to a large degree. It's just what it is in the studio being played. It's the conversation between the musicians being recorded. If you separate that and re-record them to make it all perfect, you lose the soul and the swing of the track.
Yeah.
Obviously, I tried in the 80s to keep as much of the live performance as I could. But something like Times Are Hard for Lovers, which I wrote with Desmond Child, it's just Desmond produced it, and it's just like, and I'm sort of bemused. I'm bemused in the studio. Like,
that's it. We love Desmond. Desmond does great work.
Yeah,
but he likes the candy. He likes it sugary sweet.
It does. It was beyond me. But working with somebody like that, you don't want to rein them in. I mean, there's no point working with them. Right. But following that, there's a track called Act of Love, which is pretty much live in the studio. Wow. And it got better reviews. So, I mean, you worked. I mean, it's like watching the Stones do Dirty Work, that album they made in the 80s. Yeah. And they're looking around. They're trying to find a new way of saying it. And they can't go back to being the Stones that were on Sticky Fingers.
Right.
They're trying to be of now. I mean, there's no point in being retro. That's been done. Well, you have to see the future and kind of arrange the pieces to move into new areas. You can't just be a classicist,
right,
and bore everybody to death.
But was there a pressure in the 80s? Did the record company come to you and say, listen, that's a great single, but we need a little bit more production to get it on radio? You really need to go back in there and add a few.
Well, no, I think that's been said to me.
Okay.
In the 80s, and I, like you said, and I didn't make the changes for the A&R guy. I just didn't, and he was pissed. Where are my changes? He said to me over dinner, where are my changes? And I said, like, you didn't write the song, I did.
Right.
And yeah. And it was like, somebody that was not happy at the record company. But you do, I mean, I think I've always been in command of the records I've made. I mean, when it gets taken over, and it has been in the past, like with the Babies, maybe a couple of times, and with bad English, there's like this huge production, and it's everything I don't want to do,
Yeah.
But you have to fit into it somewhere, like I said, to be in the present. And a
Was
band is a band, a band is a band. It's just there's a lot of people speaking at once.
what was bad English frustrating to you? Because those are great, power ballads, big production. I mean, they threw in the kitchen sink on those albums.
Yeah, there's a few kitchen sinks on the board there. But,
But was that frustrating to you that it's not just more real?
Yeah, I mean, everybody seems to be playing at once. There's a lot of information.
Yep.
But if you took the information out, it's not as strong. You have to play to your strengths. And there's a lot of talent in that band. And me being sort of darker, I think, in a lyrical way, and not doing the operatic thing, which makes me laugh. I mean, it's just not me. But having me be what I was amongst that's back to the thing about being present and trying to look to the future and moving forward.
Right.
Yeah.
Talking about bad English, I'm such a huge Neil Schon fan. I mean, the dude is just an incredible guitar player and songwriter. Yeah. What was it like working with Neil? Was that a fun collaboration to do?
Yeah. You could just like whistle something in sound check and he'd join in. Wow. He was gung ho to write, and he was very, very positive. And never, if we had disagreements, there was no kind of grudge or like not speaking. We'd just go out and get drunk and laugh about it. And then the next day, go back in and do it again.
He wasn't dramatic.
It was there's no politics. It was always just the music with him, which I always loved,
Yeah, I think that's probably the best way to keep a relationship going and keeping it.
Well, we've both been around the block. But I mean, I remember once being between, there was our tour manager, road manager, this huge guy called Chris Arnstein, and me and Neil are in this bar, and we're on either side of Chris Arnstein, and I lean over and I'm starting to really have a big row with Neil, and then he's shouting about, and we're trying to get at each other in this bar, and the tour manager put me in a headlock and Neil in a headlock at the bar, and then we all started laughing. It was funny, and that's the kind of relationships you want to be in, where you can say what you got to say and nobody takes it personally, and you think about it, you come back the next day and get it better.
Yeah.
Anyway, Neil is great, and I was actually talking to Dean earlier this week, a friendly chat, and anyway, great band, great music, love the memories. Let me quickly get back to the anthology, because the cover has your artwork on it, and you have your artwork over there. We recently spoke to Rick Allen of Def Leppard about his artwork. Talk to me about that. Is that something that you want to, move on to and start doing exhibitions and start moving into that? Okay, talk to me about the art bit.
It was very casual. I was doing sort of like this sort of selfie thing, which is just like a quick cartoon that I would do for people that were outside the show. If they couldn't get in and they had an album, I'd put a quick caricature of myself on and sign it as something extra. It's like giving somebody a guitar pick or spending 5 minutes. You go the extra mile for people. And if you come to my concerts, I'm going to go the extra mile for you. It's just a very natural thing. And then suddenly there were people emailing and ringing up and saying, can you do one for my wife, or will you write the lyric out, or whatever? And it was going on, it was ridiculous. And then I thought, well, shit, I went to art school for 4 years. I was going to be a designer, painter, illustrator.
Really?
Yeah. I got a diploma.
Wow.
Doesn't make
I studied creative arts in college too, and I hated it.
Oh, no. I mean, I really wanted to go to art school. I really did. It was a dream come true at 16 to go.
Wow.
It was like the height of bohemian kind of, it was great.
Was that your backup plan if the music thing didn't work out?
No, it was like, I always loved music. I was always playing music. My brother was in a band. My cousin Michael was in a band.
Yeah.
All the art students were into like walking around with LPs. And in the middle of all that, I started a band and started playing art school dances. But I was first and foremost really aiming at being a painter. And it just got to the point where I turned 18 and left art school and went to London with a band. I mean, it was like, it's just a natural thing. It was faster. Anyway, look, this is one of them. This is the French surrealist poet, Artaud.
Wow.
Just sold that yesterday.
I thought that was a self-portrait for a second. I'm just kidding.
No, get out. No, people like me, don't do that. But you know, I mean, look at this. I couldn't wait for a piece of.
But how different is that from writing a song to composing a piece of art like that, putting pen to canvas? I mean, is it the same kind of process where you're trying to come up with a concept, or?
No, it is. It is. You get an urge. You get some sort of abstract image in your head of something, colors, shapes, something that you're trying to put across that's totally, you can't put your finger on it, or you just see something in your head for a flash.
Yeah.
And the same thing is happening with songwriting. You're drawn towards two words that make no sense whatsoever, or something happens in your life that you can't put your finger on, and it necessitates, good word, either painting it or singing it. And there's nothing sort of hoity-toity about it. It's just expression.
Right.
It's like I like to read, and because I'm curious about all sorts of things, you know. But I mean, as for the art thing, on John Waite Worldwide, there's like an entire. I mean, I looked at it yesterday, and we've sold maybe 200 pieces, and that's before you even get to what we sell on the road. Some of it's just abstract, some of it's portraiture of different people, some of it's the selfies. We put up 4 yesterday and sold them immediately. I mean, it's like, and when the road becomes too much, or if the pandemic kicks back in, or if it's going to be the end of the road for music touring, because now there's some bad news today about another strain of the COVID.
Yeah, I know. Saw that.
Big time. Saw that coming. I'm going to go back to painting. You know, it's something that I'm really interested in. Yeah.
Yeah. To go back to the record really quickly, you talked about capturing a moment, and especially when you're doing covers, you don't necessarily want to just recreate what was already on record. You want to kind of make it your own. When you're sitting there and you're recording, I mean, are you going to do, is it just like a one take cut off the floor kind of thing, or are you doing multiple and then you're going to try and decide which take you prefer?
No, a lot of it is just one take, because once you start at one end, it's like a painting. You put in a thing here that must be followed by this, and that's why you would do this, and you wouldn't repeat that. You'd go somewhere else. If you start going in, I mean, you do correct odd bum notes if you know you do something that you think is completely wrong.
Of course.
But the rule of thumb, the gateway to it, the key is to keep it as live as you can, and the performance is everything. And when I started out, I was dealing with producers who would cut the drums in perfect time, then I would put the bass on in perfect tune and time, not really playing to anything but what I heard in time. Then the guitar player would put the rhythm guitar in, then they'd put a fucking 12 string in, and then it'd be synthesizers, and then it was like, get out, you know. With the thing that's great is that even when you fuck up, it's authentic.
Yeah.
And if you don't go for being authentic, you're creating something that's plastic.
Yeah.
And the human spirit doesn't react to that. I mean, I'm sure that we all sort of move pieces around to make it as good as it can be, because you're not there in person.
Right.
You're trying to recreate that moment of creation. But man, if you turn away from that, you turn away from the very essence of what it is to people.
No, totally. And it's like, it's kind of even translated to the live show these days, because it's like so many shows are just run by the show computer and Pro Tools, and it's like, you know, it leaves no room for improvisation at all. It's just so mechanical now.
I know. It's like the song's going to be 4 minutes long and it's going to stop dead. You can't jam with it or try anything different. Ouch. I mean, wow.
Well, we won't mention the band, but we saw a band 3 times in the summer of 2019. They started at 9 on the dot, and at 10:40 they stopped in all 3 cities. It was magical how it just.
Yep.
Well, just
pretty much the same banter every night too, you know.
Yeah, but every arena rock band, every single one of them is doing that.
Yeah.
It's corporate. It's big business. People are making money. They
By the way, let me
embrace.
ask you, how do you view that though? Because, we have the grid and the Pro Tools and the whole thing, but when fans are paying $300 to go to the Staples Center or the Bell Center or the whatever, don't they deserve a perfect show? Like, do you really want to go home and as an artist, do you want to face the onslaught on Twitter and Facebook of,
Yeah,
oh,
I
he was
do.
horrible last night?
No, I do.
Yeah,
If
you
there
don't
is,
mind that?
if you're not gambling, if you're not rolling the dice, that's a bit cliche. But if you're not going out there for that spontaneous moment, every room is different, every audience is different. The band's
Right.
in a different mood. We've come a different distance to get there. Somebody didn't get any sleep. It beats you up the travel. But you go on stage, and it all coalesces, all the energy and the personalities, and you create something that's just it's like a wild horse, man.
Yeah.
And that's the magic of what you do. When I was a kid, I would go and see bands at the local university. I saw Free, The Who.
Oh,
I mean,
jeez.
I
Wow.
saw all the great bands. They'd come
We-
on Friday or Saturday night and blow your socks off. But if they'd had too much to drink, or if they were stoned,
Yeah.
they
Which was
might do,
always.
yeah, they were. They might do a Sam Cooke song second, or a Van Morrison song, or an old blues. They would just be in the moment. I've heard bootleg tapes of Free playing their hits, and they're almost playing the lick backwards. I mean, and they're having a great time, and they're going somewhere that's like, without that, it's not music.
Yeah.
And
You can't-
yes, I appreciate that it is big business, and yes, I get it. And if you want to go and listen to somebody lip syncing and looking all pained, playing the keyboards when they're not really playing,
Yeah.
good on you. If that's what you like, there's room for everybody.
Well,
Look what
I'll tell
happened
you,
to country.
the-
Look what happened to country music. There's
Yeah.
now synthesizers in country music.
Well, it's Def Leppard with a fiddle. You can thank Mutt and Shania for that in the late '90s with those records.
100%.
And but I also think modern country music sounds the way it does is because the rock bands don't want to sound like that. If you listen to today's pop country, you listen to Florida Georgia Line and all those guys, or even Luke Bryan, it's basically 1987 arena rock, but on country
yeah.
radio.
It's
you know?
Bon Jovi with a fiddle. That's what I've always said.
Yeah.
Whoa, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. But I mean, yeah, there are people that I started out thinking were really the real deal. And they knew, there's one guy in particular, and he's just released a record. And he's got the hat on and the low voice and the denim shirt, and he looks like he's been up for 3 weeks. And he's a hard living cowboy on life's highway.
Yep.
And the fucking record is all samples, it's auto-tuned, and it's made to be sold to an audience.
Yeah, it's no longer 3 chords in the truth. My dog
Yeah,
ran
no, it's
away.
not.
My
It's-
wife divorced
it's a
me.
ve-
My beer's
yeah.
gone.
Yeah, yeah. Somebody shot my dog. That's the one.
Yeah.
It's no longer that at all. But maybe that's where country's supposed to go. Country is the voice of the people. How many
Yeah.
people now live on farms and work the land and drive into town on Friday for a beer and to go and watch a band and do some dancing?
Yeah.
How many people go to the Ryman to see some old-timey music? Not many. It's a different generation. And you can't keep going back to the past and saying, this is the deal. Like I said before, you have to be in the time you're in and move forward and represent the people who are dealing with the economy being upside down, COVID, having families they can't support anymore because of COVID and people going out, just the world changing. You have to be, it's an honor, it's a point of honor. You have to represent what's out there, or you're not being an artist. And it draws you into a world that is now big business, and you've got to be very careful.
Yep.
So you're telling me when you're doing these gigs on December 17th in Kent, December 18th in North Tonawanda, and December 9th in Warrendale, you're not running the Pro Tools rig, and you're going to leave room for improvisation, is what you're
We
saying.
can't afford the Pro Tools, right?
There's no grid.
Yeah, no, we go into small places. What we've started doing now, interestingly enough, is that we come out acoustic. Me and Mark Rashadi, the guitar player, come out 2 acoustics, and we do like 6 songs. And in the middle of the 6th song, the band come out and kick off that song, the end of it. And then we go straight into all the big hits like Missing You, Change, Back on My Feet, Midnight Rendezvous, Head First. We just hit it. And we have the 2 worlds. And, it's when it flies, it's the most wonderful thing,
Yeah.
It's the greatest.
There's no better feeling than being on stage and having that connection with fellow musicians and just getting the vibe going,
Absolutely. I mean, without that, what are you doing it for? I mean,
Yeah.
I know that you all have kids and divorced and you got alimony and you got this, that, and the other. But, Eddie Money didn't go out with Pro Tools, and he was always playing with his band.
Yeah.
And you never knew what you were going to get. But it was always engaging because it was so honest. The guy would go out and tell jokes. And if it fucked up, he'd apologize, stop the show and start again.
Yeah.
But you go for that. I've done shows where you break a guitar string in an unplugged situation, and you have to like spend 5 minutes getting a string out and retuning or like, trying to get the other guitar up. And the audience kind of love that because you can talk to them and you're there. You're not.
It's a moment, really.
It really is. And when that goes, I don't want to get any bigger than I am at the moment. I mean, it's just like we play to 500 people maybe a night. And sometimes we're at a festival where it's about 6,000. Or we've just gone out with Neil Giraldo and Pat Benatar. And we're playing sometimes unplugged. It's like 4,000, 6,000, and it works. Or we come out doing the unplugged thing and then do the electric thing. But people respond like you wouldn't believe. Because there's a conversation, there's a giving of something, that seems to be absent now from so many bands.
Yeah.
If somebody leaves the band, they get somebody in that sounds like it. What the fuck is that? Yeah. I mean, really, isn't that obviously just playing the audience?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You realize you figure that most casual fans won't even notice the difference.
And a lot of them don't. Yeah. It's just like they don't care.
Well, listen, when in 2009, I went to see Kiss with my brother, and they had long changed their members. And he says to me, what was with Ace tonight? And it's like,
Ace?
He hasn't been there in a decade. Like, what the But he had the makeup on, and it was just like, okay, I guess he fooled my brother, which I thought was kind of surprising because he's pretty up on the rock stuff. But
well,
It works.
Peter seemed to have a lot of energy tonight. Oh, that wasn't Peter.
I know. And by the way, I always ask you about the Vinnie Vincent collaboration. We should go there at some point. But let me quickly ask you, you mentioned that you tried to do an electric album. It didn't work, so we did more acoustic. Are we still trying to do the electric album, or is that still on the plate?
I think some songs that I write have to be electric.
Right.
They're more blues driven, and you want the volume and you want the aggression, and it's not going to work unplugged. And there's some songs that are just like stories, and that's a couple of times I've managed to bring the stories into the electric thing, like Forget Me Not with Bad English, or Head Above the Waves with the Babies, or Run to Mexico. At Time Stood Still with Bad English. A lot of my songs have stories in them. And occasionally I've been able to put that into an electric framework, and it works. But like Bluebird Cafe or Downtown, you can't do those songs full bore. They have to be more conversational. So it depends on what I write next. If I write something that I'm gearing towards it. I mean, as you get to my age and you sort of look back at your life, there's a lot you want to say. And some of it is going to be angry or regretful. It's gonna slot into the blues more than country or folk. And so I hope maybe the next album I make, I will not do the Wooden Heart thing. I will have half of the songs full on electric hard rock, and the other songs will be acoustic. And that would be where probably I've always been trying to get to.
Nice dichotomy. Let me just quickly ask you, in the 80s, after Missing You and all that comes out, and with Bad English, when those songs come out, you must have had a pressure from record companies or band to say, okay, let's do another part 2. Let's do Missing You part 2. Let's do Bad English part 2. Do you feel any pressure in your career right now to do anything, or are you just completely free just to be John Waite?
Oh, I've been completely free for years. I mean, after Bad English, I made my mind up that it was getting away from me. But that was just being in a band. It's sort of, you're meant to let it get away from you. But I came back with Temple Bar, which was probably the best thing I've done.
Right.
And it happened after Bad English. I couldn't have written that record without feeling what I felt coming out of Bad English. I was back in New York City. I was on a sort of mission to sort of be a one-man hellfire club. I was living kind of wild, but I was also writing songs about it, and they were kind of spiritual, or they were sexual yearning or whatever. It was all like I was alive. And I wrote Temple Bar about the first glass of wine you have in the Temple Bar, which was a bar I used to go to, and where your mind goes to. It could be a martini or a glass of red wine, but your mind goes off into a looking back, into a looking forward, you know, Bacchus. And that's probably my favorite record. But from that point on, the bar was raised to a point where, you know, that was Temple Bar. I raised my own bar, and I've never really, hopefully, not reached that bar. I've always tried to go further. But for the last 25 years, you know, I have been absolutely unaware of what anybody else says or thinks. I just do what I do.
Man, that's got to be a great place.
That's how you should live it. That's how you should live life, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's got to be so frustrating when they go, I need, you know, Missing You Part 2. And you're just like,
oh, man. I knew that was coming. I mean, that was lightning in a bottle, you know. It was made up on the spot. I made the lyrics up on the spot, the melody, and it was there. And I knew it was number one. And I ticked that box before I even left the studio. I knew it was number one. I knew my life was going to change completely. I'd been looking for that key all my life, for a song that wasn't overly commercial, that was that honest, that had integrity, and it had the balls and the vulnerability of a hardcore song. It was just perfect. But when it got to number one, that world is a world of spotlights, red carpets, friends you don't really know, people knocking on your door you don't really know. The phone rings all the time and somebody picks up and it's trouble, you know. It's just like, Jesus Christ, is this it, you know? But I had the wonderful thing of going to number one, and I thought at that point, I've written my own ticket. I don't need to do anything really again. It's like Tracy Chapman with Fast Car. You get a song that beautiful, and it's perfect. Do you write, you know, Slow Car? You know, somebody at the record company says, I've got this idea, Johnny. You got to write about a, you know, whatever.
So your next song should have been called I Found You. That should have been the next song.
Yeah. You know.
No, but it's in a sense, you just described a very spiritual moment that you hit the sort of nirvana. Yeah. And right away they strip the whole spirit out of you and say, fuck it.
You know, you get that. I think Ian Hunter said it about he was looking at the marquee of Hammersmith Odeon in London with Mott the Hoople.
Yeah.
It just got to like number one or whatever with all the young dudes. And he's looking at it and he said to himself, is this it? You know, because all the fun you have getting there is the best it'll ever be. And unless you're an egomaniac and a sociopath, getting there is a whole different deal. And if you really want to, you know, I mean, I can talk about myself here, that I'm going to go to UPS and get some artwork sent out, and I'm going to go and probably, you know, have fish and chips and a pint of Guinness. I don't know. I got the day off.
But it's that philosopher Kierkegaard who said that the anticipation is greater than the get.
Wow. Well, you should ask my girlfriend about that, you know.
Yeah.
The chase is always better than the catch.
Yeah. No, look at this. I got Freud for beginners. So I'm reading this at the moment. This is an eye-opening situation, friends.
Well, head over to Soren Kierkegaard, the Danish philosopher, because that whole anticipation is greater than the get is really true in life. About Christmas, about the girlfriend, about the you're waiting for, you know.
Yeah, but if you step into the moment, much like the music, and you don't fantasize, or you you go, if you don't stop reading the book kind of thing, if you keep turning the pages, it's going to be wonderful. But if you start exaggerating, I mean, enough is enough.
Great band, by the way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
But I
there
mean,
you go.
that's I'm getting philosophical here, but that's how I see it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, hey,
Said it all.
you said it all, my friend. This is great.
Brand new album. Thank you so much.
Well, is it still technically brand new? I mean, it's not a year old yet. You still can say that.
I think it's about 6-7 months. Is it 8 months?
I believe it came out in June, if I'm not mistaken. Because I got it over the summer, and I bought it from the website. In fact, I bought it live while we were doing an interview, and then I bought it while we were doing the interview because
that's why we're here today. You're a good guy,
That's right. You got to support your artist. You just gotta. And the versions are great. I mean, I just love these versions, and boy, what a great combination.
Yeah. Well, if I could think of something I could do to bring, I mean, you're always looking for something new.
Yeah.
If you got any kind of, it's like, if you look at the artwork, it goes from these caricatures to some extremely involved stuff, and portraiture like Patti Smith and Artaud and Eric Satie and stuff. But, you're always looking. I mean, once you lose that, life stops, the clock stops, you stop, and you depart from this wonderfulness, you give something up for something else. But I hope, without sounding too, I don't want to sound like I've got the answer, but I hope that as long as I make music, I'm reaching forward. I really do.
Yeah, well, you seem in a very, very very happy place. I mean, you're doing the music you want to do. I know a few people that have gone to see your shows in the States recently. They loved it. They just loved the experience. They on Facebook they have all the signed vinyls, and they're just like, man, he takes time. He's one of us. What more do you want?
Man of the people.
It's an honor. It's an honor. Somebody asked me a couple of months ago on an interview to describe the most important thing about being an artist. And my answer was that people listen, and you have a communication. I mean, a lot of people have a lot to say and a full heart, but nobody's listening.
Right.
All my life, I've been able to talk to the world, unself-consciously write songs, and at certain points really stand naked, and that is the most wonderful thing in the world. When you walk out on stage, there's a couple of thousand people and they understand you.
Yeah.
You're not some loner wandering from bar to bar somewhere looking for a reasonably priced automatic pistol. I mean, it's such a wonderful thing to have people understand you. Jesus, that's like the Oscar of life.
I fully agree. And your music has touched me for almost 40 years now.
Wow, that's great.
Well, look,
I remember
about John
being
Waite.
in a.
You talk about John
the first
so
time
often
I heard
and
him
so frequently. I mean,
I was the first time I heard about John Waite. I was walking in a mall in Florida, and they played a song by the Babies, and they go, "That's the Babies with the singer." Blah blah. And then a few years later, it's like, "Oh, Missing You," and it's just like, "Oh," and of course that was all over the TV. You couldn't be a teenager and miss that.
Yeah,
and it was great.
Yeah,
it was great.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's a great song. And the version with, what's her name? Alison Krauss?
Alison Krauss. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
incredible.
Well, they do a version of Missing You Together, which is just sublime. It's almost religious, and it's just those two voices just they blend.
Yeah.
What a talent, or what talents, plural.
Yeah. Well, Alison's like a burning shaft of light. She's really the real cool thing. She's a beautiful person. And she's represented bluegrass in a modern world, like back to that.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of things she does are old timey, and it's just like what you see is what you get. But the stuff with Robert Plant and
Well,
and
her record Paper Airplane that came out back in like 2008 is incredible. They actually won the Grammy Award for engineering. Mike Shipley, who was the producer of that
well,
record.
Mike Shipley produced Temple Bar.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, and I suggested to Alison that she work with Mike Shipley.
Wow.
So and then
Everybody.
Mike Shipley is no longer with us, unfortunately, but
Yeah.
he was one of the most gifted guys I've ever been in a room with. When he mixed, I sent him the tapes of Missing You with Alison, and I asked him if he'd mix it, and he said sure, and he went in the studio and mixed it. And when I heard it back in LA or Nashville, it's the only time in my life I've heard music in speakers in 3D. There was like, the bass would be like a foot off the speaker on the left. I would be somewhere in the middle, edging to the right. Alice would be maybe on the left and maybe an inch forward. But there was a physicality to where the sound was placed.
Yeah.
I've never seen that. That's how brilliant Mike Shipley was.
Yeah.
And with ears like that and taste like that, he made me laugh out loud a couple of times in the studio. He would just flick a switch and say, do you know what? We need to make that. And he'd go like, just a minute. And he'd go, how about that? And I'd go, fucking hell, how'd you do that, Mike? And he'd go like, don't worry. He was that good. It's just easy to work with and a great guy, and we miss him.
Yeah, I think he's the greatest mixer of all time, honestly. I mean, like,
honestly, what I've just said about the mix, I've never experienced that with any other person. No matter what caliber they are, it blew my mind. I could not believe what he'd done.
Yeah. Mitch, Mike Shipley was Mutt's right-hand man, by the way, in the 80s.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. The Mutt Lang, Mike Shipley, Def Leppard connection, I mean, they defined the 80s moving forward.
Best sounding records, man.
Yeah. I mean, it was like high art,
Yeah, and the thing about it was funny. I was reading an interview with I think it was Allison, or it might have been with Mike Shipley. Actually, they were talking about that Alison Krauss record, and they even went so far as getting like gold microphone cables and stuff like that to like record the best sound possible. And even Alison Krauss, apparently, she refuses to record without it now.
Yeah, no, it's like he had this compressor that he used for the bass. And the bass suddenly became like an acoustic bass, like on Transformer, David Bowie working with Lou Reed. They used an electric bass on Walk on the Wild Side. They used an electric bass and an upright bass, and they combined the two basses to get a certain sound. When it goes boom, 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 that's two basses. And Shipley had this thing where it's like, it's like me again going, hey, Mike, couldn't we make the bass kind of like, and he goes like, just a minute. And he brought this thing in the studio, this little box he had made, and he just killed it. And,
wow.
There wasn't anything I asked him to do that he couldn't do and blow my mind.
Yeah.
And I'm difficult to work with. I mean, I really know what I want. I don't take a lot of guff. It's like I know. Yeah. And on Temple Bar, I was making all the decisions and a snap decision. And all he did was help. There was no like politics of, well, no, I'm producing. It was like he helped me to make my best record.
Yeah. And I think at the end of the day, that's how it should be, right? I mean, the artist should be the one giving you the direction, say, well, this is what I want. You're hired to help me realize that. He's
asking his elbow. I mean, if you've got 12 songs, you're under a lot of pressure and you have to cut them all. And you can, I think sometimes a voice of reason is really what a producer is,
Yeah.
You need this. You need a song that's going to bridge those two. We need you to sort of sing this in a more aggressive way, or don't overdo it. Relax. And if you get somebody that's like a soulmate or somebody that sees you clearly as you see yourself, you're going to make a really good record. And if you got somebody in there that's trying to take over and call the shots, I suggest you get up and leave and cut your losses and go and do it yourself.
Yeah. No,
well, I mean, sometimes you need that, though. I mean, if you're a rookie band who's never really been in the studio and CBS just plunked out a bunch of money, they should have a right to say, okay, do this, do that. But when they got to your part with Temple Bar 95, I guess it was.
Yeah.
You don't tell John Waite anything. It's like, listen.
Well, no,
do what
you can't. I'm sure that they respect that at this point, but I don't deal with those people.
Yeah.
I know people who are technically so far forward now that are virtually friends, and if I'm in the studio, I already know I'm going to make the call, to those people. I mean, you could say that's A&R. A&R is artist and repertoire. That's what an A&R guy does. He gets involved, and sometimes he shouldn't. But I mean, sometimes the band, like you say, they're just young and they haven't a clue.
Yep.
Totally.
Well, there we go.
Well, rest
Thank
in
you,
peace,
sir.
Mike Shipley. Thanks for the music. And John Waite, man. Geez, absolute pleasure to talk to you today. This was really fun.
Well, I enjoyed the questions. And, obviously you know what you're talking about. I mean, it's like, it's not so rare now. I've been doing a lot of interviews on the back of Wooden Heart. A lot of people I talk to are really smart. It isn't like, hey, Johnny. Wow,
you mean nobody's asked you who your cutest bestie was?
What?
Nobody's asked you who your cutest bestie was?
Oh, yeah. Oh, God. But, people really, maybe it's the age group, we know a lot, but some of the conversations get really intense.
Yeah.
And I don't even bother if it's going to be offensive or, the more I look at the news every day and the woke thing and some of the madness that's going on in the world right now, it's fuck off, either be straight up, tell the truth, be positive, and either make a difference or shut up. It simplifies everything to live in a world like we live.
I agree. I'm with you on that. And for the folks that don't have a Wooden Heart, the acoustic anthology, which I can sort of show you here.
There it is.
It is worth the price of admission. I bought this copy, and I'm proud that I bought the copy. It was worth every penny.
Ticket covers the entire seat, but you'll only need the edge.
That is true.
That was great. That was great. I like that.
That is true. Thank you,
All right,
sir.
John. Well,
Always a pleasure.
Thanks a lot. It was great to meet you.
And you too. Thanks very much for everything. Have a really wonderful Christmas and take care and be well.
Back
Merci.
at you. All right.
Cheers.
See you later.
Bonsoir.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
An all-new episode of the Jeremy White Podcast, Tuesday at noon. Available wherever you stream. Catch up on past interviews and episodes on demand now. Subscribe so you don't miss any of it.